You gotta go on and I wonder, I pressed the button. Yeah.
Hello.
That's great. We can see you now.
Yes, hi. Sorry.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We'll get started in about 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, just about ready to start here. We'll call the meeting to order. Welcome here. We're privileged to be here. This is an important topic, and welcome committee members and staff to our meeting today. And we have an agenda ahead of us. We've got a couple of things that are important, so we'll be discussing those, and staff will be elucidating those in just a moment. There you go. So first item is to adopt the agenda, and the chair will entertain a motion moved by Joanne, seconded by Gina. Any comments? All in favor? Thank you very much. And then we have minutes from the previous meeting. Hopefully you had a chance to look at those. Any errors or omissions? I think they look pretty good to me. And I would like to have a mover or a seconder on those as well. Great, okay, moved and seconded. Thank you very much. All in favor? Carried. And we'll go right to reports. And we've got some interesting reports today. The Accessibility Plan Community Engagement Update. And there's some information that will be circulated. And who would like to take responsibility to speak to that? John?
Councillor Gibson, if
Go ahead, please.
your pleasure, I'd like to introduce Maggie Luckban, who's going to come up to the podium right now. Committee members may remember Maggie from previous meetings. Maggie is our operational lead in the community consultation for the development of the accessibility plan. She's here today with an update on the community engagement to date. We're still in process on that, but we wanted to share some of the findings at this point and seek any input that the committee members haven't had a chance to provide through one of the open houses or other forums. So with that, Maggie, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. That vibrates. No? How do I get to the...
Working great.
Oh, am I touching stuff I'm not supposed to? Oh. How do I... Oh, it's a PDF. I can't control it then.
Yes, you can.
So they just need to activate it here, Maggie.
Okay.
There you go.
There you go.
Thank you. Okay, so I am here to provide an update with the community engagement process for the community accessibility plan. So this is the engagement timeline to date. We have planned 12 engagement sessions that have a combination of in-person and virtual sessions. And so far to date, we have completed 7 of those sessions. This is the engagement opportunity schedule, as you can see, of all the dates that we had planned with the location to follow. The check marks are the ones that we have completed to date, which May 25 should be a check mark on that since we did it this morning. And the bullet ones are the ones that we have yet to do. So there's going to be a lot of numbers that I'm going to be tossing around in this presentation, so I'm going to try my best to make it as clear as possible. So the data included in this presentation is between March 19th and May 7th. So May 7th was the cutoff date. There's a total of 255 participants that have engaged in the process so far. The top bubble there is 255 who have come to the engagement sessions as well as completed the online survey. 163 individuals, or we've had 163 responses for the online survey, and 92 individuals came to either the virtual or the in-person engagement sessions. So this is data generated from the Let's Talk Abbotsford website. A report was pulled to let us know how many notifications or emails that they had sent to residents. So there were 3,270 emails sent, and of that number, there was a 56.6% open rate. So that means that there was 1,816 people who opened the email that they were sent in their inbox. From that number, there was 133 accounts or individuals that clicked on the link in the email that led them straight to the Let's Talk Abbotsford page and the project information. The bottom bubbles there that you see, there's 985 aware visitors, and what that means are people who viewed the Let's Talk Abbotsford page. There are 287 informed visitors, which means individuals who read the content and clicked around a little bit, and 189 engaged visitors, meaning that they clicked around, they read the project information, and they also opened the survey, went through it a little bit. But we've had 163 individuals who clicked submit on the survey. This is the communications plan that staff laid out to promote our project. We used online and traditional media to share information about the project. So staff were using the City of Abbotsford website, social media platforms. We connected with community partners and had them share content as well on their social media platforms and websites. And there's a Sumas LED sign, like a big one that goes over the highway there. I don't know if any of you have seen it, but it's on there as well, so you can read it as you drive by. We use the recreation software, which is where the registration page is for PRC. And we sent out 5,058 emails, and of those emails, 1,012 or 1,214 people opened it. So the traditional media that we used, 3 newspaper ads, and we designed posters that were translated into Punjabi and in English. The traffic sources overview shows the platforms that individuals are finding project information. So I'm just going to highlight the top one there. There was 364 people who were using Facebook, and they clicked on a Facebook post, which led them to the Let's Talk Abbotsford page. So the next few slides, I'll be reviewing focus areas of what participants who completed the online survey have reported out. So this slide shows the demographics of individuals engaging in the project. So the age range there with a total of 100 individuals between the ages of 31 and 60. So that's who's completing the majority, or where we're getting most of the feedback from. And the connection to Abbotsford, most are residents, followed by individuals who are working within the city. Staff asked the community to identify their 2 choices that they or someone they know feel are the greatest barriers related to moving around the community. And participants responded I'll just discuss the top 3 there that you see. Physical barriers are the greatest barriers that people are impacted by, with 93 responses to that. So physical barriers are features of buildings, spaces that limit people from moving around easily. Followed by transportation at 52 responses. So transportation is convenient and accessible transit. And then communication, we had 38 responses that felt that was a barrier. Staff generated a word cloud, which produces larger text if the word is repeated more oftentimes. This image identifies what participants think or what they think of when they hear the word accessibility. So as you can see, the general consensus of what accessibility means to the community is the biggest word there is access, followed by able, people, and everyone. Staff asked the community to identify the greatest barriers related to communications and marketing. And on the side of the PowerPoint there's going to be the top 3 most common areas. So easy to read, simple languages comes at number 1 with 98 responses, which means that it's free from jargon, legalese, it's just easy to understand. 61, captioned video, which is transcription of dialogue. And 59 responses at translation services and language barriers. So having professional services on hand to help translate. Staff asked the community what the greatest barriers are related to housing. And the priorities are at 176 responses, housing. Followed by 49 responses at limited subsidized programs. So that's housing that people with low income have access to, and 46 responses to limited adaptable housing, which is just being able to adapt your home to be able to move around like in a wheelchair. Staff asked the community to identify the greatest barriers related to public roads and walkways. So participant priorities in these areas are access to public restrooms, which had 93 responses, convenient transit, which had 78 responses, and the environment, which had 62 responses. And by environment, that's snow and ice removal, landscaping, sidewalk maintenance, uneven surfaces, that kind of thing. This slide shows the most common areas generated from all of the comments that received, so the interactions that staff were having. At the end of the survey, there's a question that's asking for further comments to add. So these are all those comments. And the majority of these comments are breaking down the large subject areas into specific barriers that people are dealing with on a daily basis. So I'm just going to focus on the top 3 here and provide a quote from what participants are saying just to give you a sense. So 50 responses for public facilities, parks, and trails are discussed. And most of those comments are about facility improvements and upgrades to become more accessible. So one person writes, quote, "At Abbotsford Centre, there are a few seats available for wheelchair patrons. When I try to buy accessible tickets, I'm often told that there's none available, but there are seats for able-bodied patrons. That is not right, and I have told staff that there is a seat for an able-bodied person. If there is a seat for an able-bodied person, there should be one for someone in a wheelchair." Quote. Another person wrote, quote, "Accessibility is more than adding a button to open doors. It's about the foresight in understanding and knowing where the button needs to be in order for someone to reach it, as well as the space they need passing through before and after." So moving on to the next bar there, that dark blue one, there was 44 responses for public roads and walkways. And most of these comments focused on accessible transportation and the environment. So someone wrote, quote, "I'm a parent of 4 autistic children. We're considered low income. The public transportation is extremely insufficient for us. My 2 children, who are now grown adults, have never driven and never will. But they face difficulties with insufficient public transportation schedules and routes. Additionally, when they walk, they have almost been hit by cars numerous times due to poor lighting at major intersections." Another person writes, quote, "Snow that is uncleared in streets, pathways, and sidewalks create obstacles which contributes to isolation for those with mobility challenges. Resources are needed to help provide transportation during poor weather." End quote. There's been 22 responses for PRC programs and activities, mostly around adaptable programming or the lack thereof. Participant wrote, quote, "My daughter has a physical and intellectual disability. I would like to register her into programs, but there are no adaptable programs for her, such as swimming, ice skating, and sport programs. She's unable to go into class that is meant for a neurotypical child because she needs one-to-one support. I'd love to see more adaptable programs." So as you can tell, these are specific barriers related to the large, broad subject area. So these are some emerging themes that the data has generated as focus areas. The data suggests that there are different barriers depending on where in the community that you're living. So when so we separated into community hubs and into rural locations. So the community hubs were like where we were for ARC, UFV. We were at a library today, so that's all kind of community hub. And the rural locations were the elementary schools that we were at, kind of the outskirts of town, the smaller communities. So that's how we separated into those 2 columns there. So when staff were at these locations and participants were actively using facilities within the community hub, their priorities were focused on removing barriers to participation related to programs and services in the recreation center and for the transportation system. But when we were at the rural locations, further away from the public facilities, the barriers were mostly focused on access to public roads, access to free or discounted services as well. So this is a combination of what everyone in the community or those who responded are saying. So regardless if you're living in the rural or in the community hub, these are the common interests. So the lack of accessible washrooms is a very popular topic amongst all users within the community. Affordable housing options is also, it impacts all residents. And simple, plain language was also a barrier given the diverse community that we live in. So the next steps to the schedule, there are 3 sessions left for June 8th, which is a virtual session. June 15th, which is at the library, and June 19th is our stakeholder engagement. So this is a list of stakeholders that we connected with and invited to the stakeholder engagement on June 19th at MRC. And the red italics are the organizations that have confirmed their attendance to the stakeholder engagement. The stakeholder engagement activity allows staff to target individuals or groups that have a high level of impact and experience within those communities and demographics. And the stakeholder engagement planning session, or the session for the planning, the session is underway right now. We're looking at having more of a World Cafe type format. So representatives of organizations are going to be moving around to different stations and discussing barriers in 5 subject areas. So the 5 subject areas are infrastructure, environment, public programs and services, communications and marketing, and other city services is what we're going to be talking about. The next steps to the project timeline, consultations will end as of June 19th. Data analysis and findings we're going to continue through to July. We're going to have a draft accessibility plan come September and presentations and approval for you in October. Questions?
Well, thank you. Okay, stay there. Any questions, any queries on a clarification of anything you've heard today, committee members? Yeah, go ahead.
Just wanted to say that was a very well done presentation. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Yeah, I have too. There's a lot of work's gone into this, and
Yes.
I've been able to catch most of the sessions or many of them. And I was surprised at how many categories there are. I thought there would be only half a dozen, but they really, the staff have really gone out of their way to really canvass the public, I think,
Yes.
quite well. I have a quick question here. Under the environment, Maggie, it's got like wildlife. What is that all about? What does that mean?
In the outskirts of town, like there are wildlife, like we have parks, for instance.
Yeah.
At Delaire, they have sometimes coyotes and things like that.
Oh,
I don't know
I
if
see.
we ever have bears run through any of the park spaces, but that's kind of
Oh, I
wildlife
see.
that we're talking about. I was talking to a participant that was talking about beavers in I guess the sloughs.
Oh,
So I guess
see.
that type of wildlife.
Okay, yeah, my wife was running a trail last year and she got followed by a cougar up by Augustin. That was kind of an exciting experience for her. Okay, anything else? Any queries? Yeah, go ahead, please.
I just thought the sessions were really well put together. I really liked the boards and
Yeah,
there's a photograph, there's the different categories and then the stickers. It was a really good way to capture people's thoughts.
yeah. I think the other thing is too, when the public comes in, staff are available to talk to them. We have a good contingent of staff there to respond to queries and questions, so that's good too. Okay,
Councillor Gibson?
oh yeah,
Do you mind if I just ask the committee members, is there anything that you've experienced or have heard through your networks that isn't being captured in the updated information we have so far? Because we have some opportunities specifically with the stakeholders that we can suss that out a little bit. So if there's anything that you want us to keep an eye out for, we'd love to hear that, so.
For me, I think I might have already spoke this example, but in terms of transportation for people with disabilities, like I'm the kind of caregiver for my husband, so I put his wheelchair in the back of the car. I go with him, I take it out so he can zoom around, right? But he can't go alone. When I had surgery, I was not able to do that, so I tried to call Archway for volunteer services, but they don't transport. They don't have the volunteers to transport people with wheelchairs.
Right.
And was a 2-month wait to get on. So I had to call in favors all over the place to transport my husband to his appointments.
Okay.
So I guess just just hearing complaints of lack of like Uber accessibility or taxis, right, for people with wheelchairs.
Okay, so we've got the big engagement session coming up, so that'll be important. Get a lot of folks out for that. Okay, we don't need a motion for that. Just thank you very much, Maggie, for sharing. That was great. Good job. And next, I think we're going to call on Pardeep here. Are you ready to rock, Pardeep? Go.
I'm going to pass the baton on to
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Chair and committee members. The next report is about accessibility programs in facilities and parks. So we wanted to bring an update to the committee on what have we done in the past, where we are, and where we're going with the accessibility. And kind of aligns with what Maggie just said. One of the number one requests from public feedback is the accessible facilities, accessible sidewalks and all that. So this is kind of right in line with what we've been talking about earlier. I'll pass it on to, I've got two staff members here, Riley Sloka, he's our Director of Parks Operation, and I've got Thomas Dukeman, he's our Senior Manager of Facilities. And I'll let them provide that update to the committee and the chair.
Are you guys both going to share today or just you?
Riley's going to present, and Thomas is here to assist in case there's any questions specifically related to.
All right, we want to get people involved here now.
Awesome.
Okay, go for it.
Great, thank you so much. All right, just a brief overview of the agenda here. Going to talk a little bit about the purpose. Pardeep was alluding to what that is about, provide some context on what our current program looks like, a brief discussion on what we've undertaken to date and where we would like to go, a little bit on budget implications, and then we're looking for some support from the committee to advance an initiative as well. Purpose, to provide updates on the assessed current state of accessibility within our civic facilities and parks, historical accessibility initiatives that we've delivered in the past in these spaces, and some plans on accessibility improvements in 2024 and beyond. So context, tried to summarize this a little bit because that's a lot of words on a slide. Building code provides us with the baseline for what accessibility looks like. So that's something that we always aspire to when delivering facilities or building facilities. We also undertake an additional assessment or tool to provide us with an additional lens when looking at accessibility. We utilize Rick Hansen, the Rick Hansen Foundation, and they measure accessibility beyond building code, and they consider multiple abilities. They're considering multiple lenses when it comes to the different abilities within our community. The process for Rick Hansen's assessment process includes a review of the space, a report, and a score, along with some recommendations about how we can make improvements to that space. There's then adjudication by the Rick Hansen Foundation and an award of a accessibility certification level, and then ongoing maintenance and certification or recertification of that process. A little bit of history on what we've done to date. This list represents all of the locations that have been assessed to date. We've prioritized these locations because of their public access or their use by the public. And as you can see, many have received that basic certification level, with the exception of being Rotary Stadium. Just going to highlight a few successes of the program. All facilities that have been assessed, like I alluded to in the past slide, have been assessed and met that basic certification level, except Rotary Stadium. Through renovations, efforts are continuously made to enhance accessibility throughout our spaces. We focus on prioritizing or completing that low-hanging fruit when we are undertaking renovations. Some examples of low-hanging fruit or easy to implement improvements are things like automatic door operators, accessibility features in bathrooms, and lifts to access our pool facilities. Some challenges with implementing these features are that some of them require significant facility changes. Some examples of what this means is reconfiguring of corridors. I think in the previous presentation, there was some mention about people accessing using buttons on doors, and then there not being adequate space once you access that building. That would be an example of that, where that corridor probably doesn't accommodate that use, and it requires significant adjustments or reconfiguration of that building to accommodate that use. Some other things might include installing new elevators or changing out significant or large amounts of building materials to meet those current standards. Why some of those improvements haven't been made is due to the very high cost of making those improvements or the overall disruptions to the facility. When making improvements like that, it may mean shutting down a facility for an extended period of time and basically making massive whole-scale changes to a facility to make those adjustments. Now I'd like to just review some of our next steps that we are undertaking, a little bit of now what. This is our plan to continue to advance accessibility initiatives within spaces that are operated by our team in operations. We're going to continue to, in Abbotsford Exhibition Park, we're going to continue to complete the Rick Hansen Foundation assessments for all spaces within that park. Like I said, we've completed Rotary Stadium, the area that's highlighted in green there in the graphic. We'd like to continue completing assessments on all areas that are marked in blue. We'd like to use those assessments to inform the X-Park master plan and also start chipping away at that low-hanging fruit. So we started to complete parking lot painting, making enhancements to our washrooms and change room facilities to make them more accessible, and incorporate wayfinding signage. These are quick wins that we can implement relatively easily with minimal impact or disruption to the use of that space. In Matsqui Centennial Auditorium, we are going to be completing the Rick Hansen Foundation assessment and then addressing immediate concerns by providing inclusive auditorium seating options. In the Abbotsford Recreation Center and Matsqui Recreation Center, we are going to be updating those Rick Hansen Foundation assessments to their latest specifications. So what I mean by that is, I think that the Rick Hansen Foundation has continued to evolve and expand its knowledge and understanding of accessibility requirements. So they're continually adding new lenses, and the 4.0 specifications are I guess the newest approach to reviewing accessibility within those spaces. In those spaces, we're going to continue to complete small projects with immediate impact and then prioritize larger accessibility projects for 2025 and for the 2025 to 2030 budget period. A little bit on financial implications. I'm going to have to read off this because it's partly hidden back there. So the 2024 to 2028 approved financial plan includes $100,000 for civic facilities assessment and improvement work. Staff are not asking for any new funding at this time. Individual projects will be planned and brought forward for consideration through the 2025 to 2029 financial planning process. Where possible, the city will be applying for grant funding to supplement council-approved funds to deliver these projects. Currently, SPRCBC is offering grant funding of up to $25,000 for accessibility studies and improvements and requires a letter of support from the City of Abbotsford's Accessibility Advisory Committee. So that's why we're here today. We are looking for the Abbotsford Accessibility and Equity Advisory Committee to authorize the chair to issue a letter of support on behalf of the committee to order staff to apply for the funding of this grant. That's all I've got. So any questions, feedback?
Any questions, what you hear there? It's pretty good. I guess we look back now and we wonder, why do we have to do this now? Because in those days when these buildings were planned, we didn't have the same understanding of what accessibility is, right? So we're kind of making up for lost time. All future buildings that the city will build will be futurely accessibly compliant, and using Rick Hansen as our guide. So it's good news, bad news. The sad news is we should have done it before, but everybody was in the same page, right? We didn't quite know. Now today, we're going to be a whole lot smarter, and all the new buildings we're going to build are going to be fully compliant, aren't they? All the new buildings.
I'm going to let you respond to that.
Through the chair, building code has evolved since the 70s and 80s and 90s, and a lot of the new requirements of the building code are more accessible than they were back in the day. We don't build too many buildings, first of all. I think the only one that we're building right now that I know of is the police. And I can't confirm whether they reviewed it, but I would imagine that they have, the building design includes accessibility.
Yeah.
Do you
Well, it's
know
interesting, because I was in Victoria and a friend of mine is in a wheelchair, and she couldn't reach some of the buttons in the elevator. Hey? Well, that wouldn't happen today, right? So, okay, there's a recommended motion here, and this will get staff contacting these folks, and we'll try and get some funding in here. And who would like to move the motion? Tina? Yeah. Joanne? Okay. Any further discussion to the motion? And thank you, staff, for presenting that. Looks good. All in favor? Contrary minded? Carried. Okay, and what's next, staff? What do we want to work on here?
Mr. Chair, just your comments on the business.
Oh, that's right. I've been programmed here. I have to read. No, I'm quite obliging here. Okay, staff have received correspondence from UBCM. That's UBCM. That's all the member municipalities in the province. We're all the members. Sharing the province through the Provincial Accessibility Committee, which is kind of why we're here. Actually, the province has asked us to do this. Is initiating consultation on accessibility standards related to workforce participation and accessing community services. So we're all kind of parallel thinking here. And the consultation is going to start tomorrow and go right till the end of July. So my understanding is that staff are going to get committee members the contact information. So what you're going to get, committee members, this information that I just read out, you're going to get that sent to you, and then you can access and provide your input. So it's another way for you to be involved. And the clerk will be forwarding your correspondence to you folks and all the contact information. If you need any more information or having trouble making communication, just contact our staff and they'll help you through it. So that's good. Anything else today? How's that? But I think we're done. Okay, we had a good meeting today. Thank you, committee members.
Excuse me, I have
yeah.
something to say. I'm here too. First of all, I'm glad to see you all, to hear you all, and I wish you a good rest of the day. Thank you for these wonderful presentations. And I have just one question for first speaker. It's about how you increase your followers, because for example, I'm very active in social media, but it's very hard to find any information about any activities for people with special needs. This is my question for the first speaker, who told all information like about statistic things, how many people involved in website and everywhere. And the other one question for the second speaker, it's just about like if you are going to make new buildings for like all kind of people with all accessibilities. For example, for autistic people, I can say as a mother of autistic kid, sometimes it's very hard in the public washrooms to stay, because it's very noisy dryers there, and we never use dryers with him. So I don't ask for taking away all dryers in public washrooms, but at least to have in public washrooms alternative as paper towels for people who are afraid of these noisy dryers, if you can hear me well and understand what I mean. For example, for recreation spaces, parks, parks it will not work, but for spaces, if you build some new spaces for people special needs as well, maybe you can think about to make kind of essential rooms. I don't know if I say correctly, but for autistic people, it's very important to censor things. Sometimes they cannot feel their emotions or be over emotion because of all noise and all lights and all active things around them. So if they can come in any dark or very calm room with calm music, they can relax a little bit, like 5-10 minutes. So just think about it, if it's possible to think to make for them, it's possible too, because that's why sometimes it's very hard to take kids with autism or adults with autism somewhere, because they feel so much pressure from everything, from lights, from noise, but they want to be involved in social life, but they have no space where they can reload themselves, their feelings and their emotions, if you understand what I mean.
Okay, well, you've shared quite a few thoughts there. We have a board member that'd like to respond.
Yes.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you.
Gina.
I just wanted to say, in the notes that I took, I seen in the presentation that somebody had mentioned building washrooms for all. Is that right? I'm wondering if that could cover the area that you're asking for, is in future buildings, if they're making washrooms inclusive for anybody, maybe that would be an opportunity to incorporate some of those ideas.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you want to speak to it?
I may respond. Yeah, I think that's what Rick Hansen Foundation is expanding. Like when I alluded to that 4.0 level certification, they're constantly building their understanding around all the different types of abilities that people bring in society. And so considering the perspective that you've just shared regarding noise sensitivity or having sensory, I don't know what the proper term is, but I think what you were alluding to is like having environments with less sensory distractions in the background. That's what the intention of that assessment program is to consider all of those elements when assessing those spaces and making recommendations to consider all different abilities when we make those enhancements or when we're making renovations or considering making changes to those spaces. Does that loosely allude to or get to the core question that was being asked?
At least I wanted to be heard a little bit like in different way, because autism is not very common for people, even if you accept autistic people in your society, but they have so many things which are very hard for them, which are very easy. So I just want you to think in future in these new buildings or in the other ideas what we can make for people with special needs. Maybe we can include something like more, and it will be useful not just for autistic people but for everybody. If I have many ideas, I can send them in my email, but in your email, I mean. But for now, I just wanted to be heard in this case.
Yeah,
I can respond, Chair. So
Thank you.
Appreciate the feedback.
Yeah, I think one thing if you could do, which would be helpful, you share these orally, and you lose those very quickly. If you could write some of these things down and get them in written form, that would be very helpful, and then our staff can pounce on them and get back to you. What you've done today is great. You're a committee member, and oral presentations are fine, but I find if they're a little more tangible, if you write something down and get it to us, that would be much appreciated. I'm going to ask Todd to respond as well.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Gibson. So maybe I'll kind of start at a high level and kind of go and address some more detailed pieces of your comments there. So first, and Mr. Agriculture mentioned it a little earlier, I mean, building code is certainly what we do for compliance, but I think we're quite pleased and proud that we have this good working relationship with the Rick Hansen Foundation, because that goes above and beyond the building code piece, which is what we're trying to do with these accessibility audits, and certainly maintain that relationship as we go into new facilities and amenities, regardless of size. The kind of next level down that maybe I could just make the committee aware of is the sensory room at the Abbotsford Recreation Centre. So if you're not aware, we have a sensory room in the Abbotsford Recreation Centre. Again, as mentioned earlier in the meeting, it's not probably the best location. It's right off the gymnasium, but we're dealing with an aged facility that has some limitations. So it is in place. We actually had staff, and this came from very frontline staff, came forward with the proposal this year that Danielle and I and our colleague Jeff Payton, who's our Director of Recreation and Culture, vetted. And it was very simple, very modest, but very effective improvements. And this came about because of their training with the Rick Hansen Foundation. So we undertake that training at a staff level. In fact, Maggie was actually part of the training 2 weeks ago, where we had a representative of the Rick Hansen Foundation come in to provide training. So going back to that programming piece, I think one of the fundamental pieces we're focused on, Irina, is making sure that our staff are elevating their level of knowledge so they can program better and engage better with the community from all aspects. So we were quite pleased with that. I had a chance to poke my head into that meeting, and we had 30 plus people. I was kind of almost walking into a table. We had so many staff in attendance at the meeting. So yeah, there are things we're trying to move forward. We're mindful of maybe what we don't know, let's put it that way, and we're trying to improve that.
Good, that's good, Todd. Okay, any further?
Thank you.
Yeah, good. Well, we'll keep in touch and we look forward to welcoming you here in person sometime. Okay. Okay, thank you very much. I think if that's all, we'll vote.
Motion for adjournment.
That was next. I knew that. Okay, well, then is on a motion to adjourn. All in favor? No, moved, seconded, all in